Hello everyone, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. My name is Shubham Sagar and today we'll be doing daily news analysis of 5 articles taken from Hindu and Indian Express of 18 July 2024. If we talk about the first article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 13, titled State of the Informal Sector. Here we'll try to understand the impact of GST, demonetization, etc. on the informal sector, whether jobs have reduced, shrunk, or what were the other impacts in manufacturing, trade and services sector. If we talk about the second article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 9, and that is titled Nalanda's Lost Glory, here we'll understand A to Z about Nalanda University, historical significance, debates, controversies, challenges associated with Nalanda University. If we talk about the third article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 8, which is a very interesting article, very informative article titled Political Representation of Women. How much political representation we have given to a woman rather, and 106th Constitutional Amendment. When will it be enacted in letter and spirit? We'll be talking about that. If we talk about the fourth article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 8, holding steady, IMF is forecasting and they are having certain growth trajectory for global growth as well as India's growth, and that is very positive. We'll have a talk regarding that. We will try to understand about IMF. We'll try to understand about different publications like World Economic Outlook as well. If we talk about the fifth article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 11, and here this is a very tricky kind of an article which is related to data protection, and UPSC has already asked questions on data protection. So we'll be talking about parental consent. How much parental consent is required if a child is below 18 years of age if he is accessing any data. Data protection rules we'll be talking about in detail. Once we are done with these 5 articles, we'll solve 5 prelims practice question and 1 mains practice question, because as we have discussed earlier, practice makes a man as well as a woman perfect. So let's get started. If we talk about the first article of the day, state of the informal sector, pay attention to the words here. What is an informal sector or unorganized sector? Then there is a word called unincorporated enterprises. So we have to look at these terms as well. What do they mean? And then we will go into the intricacies of this particular article. So this article is talking about the informal sector, number of job losses which have happened because of GST, demonetization, etc. Then there are different areas like manufacturing, trade and services, how they were impacted during this GST, demonetization and other events which were happening, so-called events and so-called occurrences, right? So previous questions on like formal and non-formal sector, they have already been asked. So you need to be aware about these areas. What are formal sector, what are non-formal sector, informal sector, unorganized sector. We need to be aware about these words and terms. So what is the context? Informal sector, which is also known or sometimes synonymously used with unorganized sector, accounts for nearly half of India's economic output. If we are producing, let's say 100 goods and services, 50 is coming from informal or unorganized sector. And they're accounting for more than 75% of employment. Some people even say that informal sector or unorganized sector account for around 90% of employment in India. And like, hope you're understanding this. Only 10 out of 100 jobs is coming from formal sector, organized sector, where you have social security or even government job is a part of that formal sector. Rest 90% informal sector, where there is a vulnerability associated with job. So what has happened? Why we are reading this article? Because 16.45 lakh jobs have been lost over the past 7 years due to demonetization, GST and COVID-19 pandemic, and that is actually a very huge number. From where are we getting this particular data? Data from Annual Survey of Unincorporated Enterprises. Now, there are different terms which we need to understand. Informal sector, what is it? Then, unincorporated enterprises. What are these enterprises, right? So, first of all, informal sector, synonymously used with unorganized sector. And it is a segment of the economy with limited government regulations and oversight. And when that will happen, there is a very high chance that the people who are working there can be exploited when there is a limited government regulations and oversight. So this sector is characterized by unstructured nature, often involving businesses and workers who operate outside the formal regulatory environment. So maybe you will be working for 12 hours, maybe you don't have any social security, all these things. Lots of vulnerabilities are associated with informal sector. Now, the second term, which we have seen in the previous slides, unincorporated enterprises. The survey has been done. From there, the data has been taken. Now we have to understand unincorporated enterprise is a subset of informal sector. So informal sector, such a big sector, 90%, almost 90%. And according to this particular article, more than 75% of the population in India or working population is engaged in informal sector. So one component of informal sector is unincorporated enterprise. I will just give you an example. Let's say, see this, street vendors, they will also come under unincorporated enterprises. So we are eating golgappa or gupchup, pani puri, whatever you want to call it. So that is also under unincorporated enterprises. And here there will be two types of unincorporated enterprises. So you will understand it in a much better manner then. So here MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises, household units. Here, when we are talking about household units, they can be of two types. You have your own enterprise. Let's say you're making some pickles and you are working with your family only. You're not employing any hired workers. Then you are a part of unincorporated enterprise, which is of the type of own account enterprises. Second part is you have a big, now let's say you started a pickle setup and that became big. Now you're forced to employ people. Then you are under the hired worker enterprises. Again, under the unincorporated enterprises, which are under informal sector, right? So examples, street vendors, home-based artisans, small retail shops, even when you're going to buy Coke from a retail shop, that is also coming under unincorporated enterprises. Local service providers, electricians, plumbers, you can see the examples here. So all these are coming under unincorporated enterprise. Just remember these two terms, own account enterprise and hired worker enterprises, right? Now, let's move deeper into this article. Up until now, we have seen the words, we have seen the terms, we have tried to understand those terms. Now, what the number shows, according to like what has happened because of GST, demonetization, COVID pandemic, manufacturing sector has been or has suffered a lot. Now, there are three terms here, manufacturing, trade and services. You should be knowing these terms. What is the difference between manufacturing, trade and services? Manufacturing means you are making goods, machineries, right? Manufacturing sector in simple terms. Now, most of the people get confused between trade and services. So trade means when we are trading or when we are exporting, importing tangible goods. So that is trade. Services, when you are exporting, importing intangible goods like IT sector and everything. So hope you're understanding trade, tangible goods, services, intangible good. So manufacturing has been the worst sufferer of all this GST and demonetization and COVID-19 pandemic. Other data are also there. What do you say? Have a look at them and we'll try to delineate them. But please pay attention here. I will just show you. Manufacturing, see, 2010-11, 3.49 crore people were involved. 2015-16, 3.6. But now in 2022-23, which is the latest data we have, 3.06 crore people. That means the number of people decreased who were working in the manufacturing sector as far as informal sector is concerned. And that is actually a worrying trend. So more about the news, number of workers in the informal sector overall, combining manufacturing, trade, services has dropped to 10.96 crores from 11.13 crore. So people who are working have reduced, and that is actually a worrying sign. Then there is a very interesting observation also, which we'll talk about. Manufacturing worst affected, as we have just discussed. Now there are two specific data here, two major data. Number of informal units. Hope you're understanding informal setups, and then workers. So here in manufacturing sector, when we are talking about like 2015-16, you have 1.97 crore units, which reduced to 1.78. So we are seeing, means number of units, these informal units, they are also contracting. Workers are also decreasing between 2015-16 and 22-23. Trade units, informal units contracted, but number of workers increased. Services, both are working fine. So now let's talk about the state data. If you go back previously, there are different state-wise data, and you don't need to do PhD on this data. Basic summary is 16 out of 34 state union territories recorded a decline in the informal sector. So that means 18, the remaining 18, they recorded an increase or like the same, similar kind of data, right? Now we have seen decline in informal sector. So you may be like, this is not good. But there is an interesting observation here that if, let's say, the opposite of decline is increase. Let's say there's an increase in the share of informal sector workers. So that also shows that there is a shift, that there is a decrease in the formal sector, which is more organized, which is more secure. So sometimes even an increase in the share of informal sector is not good. That shows that the people who are going into the vulnerable arena of employment is increasing. And that shows the number of people who were in the formal sector has reduced. So hope you're understanding this. In economy, nothing is good or bad. When you're reading economy in detail, even you need certain amount of inflation if you want to curb unemployment, which is Phillips curve. So even inflation is not bad up to a certain extent. So here also, informal sector increase or decrease, both will have their own positive and negative points. Hope you're understanding this. So what is the conclusion? These survey data, they are very important for understanding employment trends, especially during slowdown in formal sector. And it also highlights the impact of demonetization, GST and COVID-19 on the informal sector. If we talk about the second article of the day, which is related to Nalanda University, which has been in news continuously from the last month, right? Because new campus has been inaugurated. So now in this particular article, we'll try to understand the historical significance and different things associated, controversies, criticism, challenges, all these things. Who has mentioned about Nalanda University, association with Buddhism, and then certain things associated with Buddhism. So this is an article via which you can revise a very important area of art and culture, that is Buddhism, that is like Delhi Sultanate. We can talk about Bakhtiyar Khilji, right? And then when was Nalanda University established? Then via that you can cover Gupta period. They were patronized, supported by Pala rulers. So many areas of ancient and medieval period can be covered when you are reading this particular article, right? So previous question has been asked, and like this in 2014, where they have done a compare and contrast between Takshila University and Nalanda University. That Takshila University's strategic location caused its fame to flourish, but unlike Nalanda, it is not considered as a university in the modern sense. So questions have been asked earlier on these universities, and you should be knowing about them. The current context of inauguration of campuses and etc. is fine, and this is the current new campus, but you need to understand the historical significance related to both ancient as well as medieval period. So established around 427 AD by Emperor Kumaragupta. So again, when you're reading about these rulers, Chandragupta I, Samudragupta means Chandragupta II, then Kumaragupta you're reading about, then Skandagupta. So you need to understand the chronology. As somebody said, you have to understand the chronology. Aap chronology samjhe. And here the ruler, Kumaragupta, is very important because they can easily change in prelims. They can easily give you that Skandagupta was the one who created it. No, Kumaragupta. And 427 AD. Then after that, decline of Gupta period happened around 550 AD. And then Pala rulers came during the early medieval period. And these Pala rulers, they patronized Gopala, Dharmpala, they patronized Buddhism, and they patronized Nalanda University as well. But then around 1200 AD, so there is a mnemonic I will tell you, Arab invaders, they came, and that the mnemonic is QGG, Qasim, Ghazni and Gauri. So Mahmud of Ghazni and then Mahmud of Gauri. This Muhammad Gauri, you must have heard about him, Battle of Tarain, 1191 AD, 1192 AD, battle with Prithviraj Chauhan, and he has many slaves. This last G, first is Qasim, Muhammad Qasim, who conquered Sindh around 712 AD, then Muhammad Ghazni, who attacked Somnath temple around 1000 AD, 1000 to 1030 AD, and then the last one, that is Ghuri or Mahmud Gauri. He was the one who was involved with Prithviraj Chauhan, Battle of Tarain, 1191, 1192. He did not have his own sons, he had slaves, and one of those slaves was Bakhtiyar Khilji, who was responsible for destroying Nalanda University, but there are debates on that as well. So global influence and recognition. Nalanda University was a very prominent university during the ancient and early medieval India, and many travelers came. One of them was Yuan Tsang. Now understand these Chinese travelers, they are important. One of the other traveler who is very prominent is Fahian. Fahian, Yuan Tsang. Now chronology based questions also comes. Who came first, Fahian or Yuan Tsang? So very easy way to remember that is F and H. In alphabetical orders, when you are reading about them, F or H, which comes first? F come first, so Fahian came first during the Gupta period. Yuan Tsang, H comes after H, means H comes after F rather. So Yuan Tsang came after Fahian, and he came during the period of Harshvardhana. That is from 606 to 647 AD. This will help you in remembering chronology, and this will also help you in remembering that Yuan Tsang talked a lot about Nalanda University, and that helped popularize Nalanda University far and wide, including Southeast Asia. Controversies and challenges. We were talking about QGG, that was a mnemonic. Qasim, Ghazni, Gauri. Gauri, Mahmud Gauri, Battle of Tarain, Prithviraj Chauhan, that's how you remember him. He did not have sons, he had slaves, he had many slaves. One of them was Qutubuddin Aibak, then Yalduj, Kubecha, and one was Bakhtiyar Khilji. And this Bakhtiyar Khilji, he did the ransacking of Nalanda University. After that, even Buddhism declined in Indian subcontinent. But there are historians like D.N. Jha who says that no, Bakhtiyar Khilji attacked a different side. So in history, you have these debates. You don't need to go deeper into them. You just can cite historians like Muhammad Habib, Satish Chandra, they said that Bakhtiyar Khilji, and most of the historians, they converge on the fact that Bakhtiyar Khilji destroyed Nalanda University. Then most of the people will not be knowing about D.N. Jha. or historian D.N. Jha. You can cite him and say that he is saying that he attacked a different side. That will add another dimension to your answer. And that is actually very much needed in UPSC now. So Buddha and rediscovery in modern perspective, what we said, when around 1200 AD, Bakhtiyar Khilji attacked, along with the decline or destruction of Nalanda University, Buddhism also declined. And the followers of Buddhism declined. Later on, when Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, he adopted Buddhism. That was a new form of Buddhism. He called it Neo-Buddhism. So many people in Maharashtra, in lakhs, converted into Buddhism, which gave a new life to Buddhism in Indian subcontinent, especially in India. So that is what we are saying. Even the opening of this Nalanda University Rajgir campus will give new meaning to Nalanda University and will or can revive Buddhism in general as well. So conclusion is, Nalanda remains a subject of historical interpretation and significance, because we know what are the different interpretation of historians, D.N. Jha and other people. And there is a quote also of Oscar Wilde that word is nothing, interpretation is everything. Interpretation is key to understanding its legacy. This is actually very interesting. You can read more about this quote of Oscar Wilde. We are not here to read that quote, but that quote is actually very interesting. Do try to understand more about it. What is the meaning of this? Word is nothing, interpretation is everything. If we talk about the third article of the day, which is a very sensitive article related to social justice as well, social empowerment as well, women empowerment as well, political empowerment as well, how much women are getting represented. And this is again a very beautiful article written by R. Rangarajan, where we are doing a comparative analysis with other countries also. And even data from Pakistan is heartening. And we have to do some introspection on how we can improve political representation of women in different arenas, be it legislative assembly or Lok Sabha or parliament as such. So what we need to do and what we are doing, 106th constitutional amendment we have passed, but why it has not yet been implemented? What is the reason behind it? We'll talk about that as well, right? So previous year questions, reservation of seats for women in the institution of local self-government has had a limited impact in the patriarchal character of the Indian political process. And here there is a concept of sarpanchpati, etc., which you don't need to go that deep into detail right now. This article is something else, and this article is very, very enriching. But this previous year question PYQ is giving you an idea that yes, reservation of seats for women, questions have been asked on this. So what is the context? In the recent general election in UK, a record 263 women MPs, 40%, oh my God, we have not yet crossed more than 18%. And here 40% women MPs were elected in United Kingdom. And this milestone highlights the ongoing global debate and efforts to reform and enhance the political representation of women. Because in general, what is happening? 50-50, 50 men, 50 women, or even if skewed ratio, you say, you make male sex ratio, let's say 48% female, 52% male, even then you should have 40-45% women seats. But 13%, 14%, 9% in legislative assembly, that shows so much political subordination of women at so many levels. So women representation in different countries. Have a look at this. And then there are different things. One is reservation in parliament or state legislature. Second is inside the party only you can have reservation that, okay, we will give, let's say Trinamool Congress is there. And if they're giving 100 tickets, so out of that 100 tickets or those 100 tickets, they will give 40 tickets to women. So that is quota in political parties. In some country, there is quota in political parties. In some countries like Pakistan, there is no quota in political parties, but they're giving quota in parliament, right? We have introduced 106 Constitutional Amendment Act and we have enacted it, but this is not yet in force. And there is a specific reason for that, which we will discuss later on. So PRS Legislative Research, they have given this data, and this data is very, very fascinating, which you can quote in your pre as well as, like, you can quote it in mains and you can use it as a source to solve pre-questions. So current status of women representation in India, women's representation in India. Since first general election, universal suffrage. So this is actually, you may feel like the right to vote to women is not a big deal, but when you compare with European countries, what has happened there? The women got voting rights so late. After they got independence, India was very, very forward in that regard. So despite this, representation of women is low. And you can see here, see the data. Women MP in Lok Sabha, 5 to 10% until 2004. Starting of 21st century, we were having women representation between 5 to 10%. And this is a very, very sad figure to say. Then 12%, and now currently it is 14%, not even 18%, 14% we are. And if you see the data and related to Pakistan, they are at 16%. So when it comes to political empowerment of women, Pakistan is doing much better than us, and this is not a good fact to state, right? The situation is grimmer in State Legislative Assembly, which has around 9% women representation. In Lok Sabha, we have 14%. State Legislative Assemblies are performing poorer than current Lok Sabha. 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment related to panchayats and municipalities. They talk about 1/3 reservation for women in municipalities. So there is greater representation in local bodies, but there's a concept of sarpanch pati there, which means that the husband of that particular lady, he is the one who is taking most of the decisions. So even if you're giving, or even though you are giving political empowerment to women, that is actually not being fully realized. So attempts to extend similar reservation to Lok Sabha and state assemblies have faced legislative hurdles, and that's what we have to improve. And here we are talking about ways to improve women representation. Internal reservation within political parties, we have taken the example of Trinamool Congress, and even Biju Janata Dal in Odisha, they are doing good in that regard. So internal reservation, but some people say that again, reservation may undermine the principle of meritocracy, which is a basic criticism of reservation in general per se, right? So, but there are benefits also, because currently the data which we have of women representation in parliament, that is actually a very sad data. So what are the benefits of internal reservation within political parties? It allows parties to select competent women candidates, which while giving voters a democratic choice. Parties with internal quotas like Trinamool Congress, we have talked about it, demonstrate better women representation, directly influence the number of women candidates. But the issue is the problem of, or the principle of meritocracy may or may not be violated. Rotation of reserve seats. So let's say for 5 years, a male candidate has been selected from TMC for a particular constituency, and it is given that next time a woman candidate will be filed from that particular constituency. So that male candidate or that male MP may not be having that much enthusiasm to do much for his constituency, because he knows next time he is not coming back. So that is what they are saying. The rotation of reserve seats after each delimitation may reduce the incentive for MPs to develop and nurture their constituencies. Also, it may not yield the desired representation of women in the legislature. First is inside political party only you do reservation. Second is you do reservation in legislature. So women have historically been underrepresented in politics due to social, economic and cultural barriers. So if we give reservation, which we are trying via this 106 Constitutional Amendment Act, that will lead to increasing their visibility and influence in politics, contributing to gender-sensitive governance. What is the conclusion? The 106th Constitutional Amendment, which has been passed in September 2023, it mandates 1/3 reservation, but they are saying this reservation will be carried out once we have the new census data. And census 2021 has not yet been carried out. So this is in a limbo, this particular 106th Constitutional Amendment, because we do not have the new data according to the new census. So hopefully this 2021 census is carried out, even though it's already 2024. So that we can implement 106th Constitutional Amendment Act from 2029 onwards, at least from 2029 onwards, when the next Lok Sabha election will be happening, right? If we talk about the fourth article of the day, where different areas are merging, GS paper 2, paper 3, because we are talking about an international institution, IMF, and they're talking about economy or inflation, deflation, and growth forecast for different countries, including India. So again, we have to look for the keywords. And not everything written in this article is important, but there are so many important keywords like IMF. You people have to understand what is IMF, right? They publish a report which is known as World Economic Outlook. You can see here, World Economic Outlook. Then there is something known as Global Economic Outlook, which is not the same as World Economic Outlook. Some other organization publishes Global Economic Outlook that you have to find out. Then there is Global Economic Prospect. That particular report is published by World Bank. So these are very small, minute areas which we need to focus on, because you can easily make mistake here. UPSC has already asked question on World Economic Outlook, Global Economic Prospects, and we cannot afford to make mistakes in those questions which has already been asked, right? So World Economic Outlook published by IMF. Then there is Global Economic Prospect published by World Bank. And you need to be very, very cautious when you're solving these questions. So what is the context? This is actually a very happy kind of a news, very optimistic article, because they have given good growth forecast for like global growth also for India. Like also they have increased the growth projection of India. So it's a good article, happy article. There is nothing bad or negative about it. So IMF July update of the World Economic Outlook forecast, global growth at 3.2% for 2024 and 3.3% for 2025, right? And there are varied growth projections which we'll have a look at. Indian data is especially very important. So India's economy is growing or will be projected to grow at 7% in 2024, up by 0.2 percentage points from their previous estimate. Now here, from where we are getting this data? From their World Economic Outlook. World Economic Outlook is published how many times in a year? It's an annual publication. It's a biannual publication. It's a biennial publication. These words are very important. One is biannual, other is biennial, and one is annual. So annual means once a year. That's easy. Biannual means 2 times in a year, right? Biennial means once in 2 years. So please pay attention to these words. These are important and key areas. So Asian Development Bank, they also have given their own projection about India's growth. But here we are focusing on IMF, World Economic Outlook, Global Economic Prospects. We have talked about it, that there are different reports and you shouldn't be getting confused regarding them, right? So IMF, 190 member countries, they play a crucial role. If you're facing, let's say like we were facing balance of payment crisis, IMF played a crucial role in helping us. And that was not a single instance. IMF has done this thing in like multiple occasions or at multiple occasions, which we'll have a look at. So they do what? They promote global monetary cooperation, financial stability, international trade, etc. Provide financial assistance. When was it established? Where is the headquarters? Washington, D.C. Governed by a board of governors. So what are the keywords here? First of all, when was it established? They can give you different organizations and they can give you that on the basis of when they were established, arranged them in chronological order. So you need to remember the year. Where is the headquarters? Washington, D.C. Then what is the criteria? Members of IMF are required to join IBRD. Now, what is IBRD? So, again, this is the homework for you. There are 2 organizations, World Bank and World Bank Group. In World Bank, you have IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and International Development Association, IDA. So, World Bank comprises of 2 organizations, IBRD and IDA. Here, and then World Bank Group is comprising of 5 organizations, including the 2 organizations which we just discussed, IBRD and IDA. And out of those 5 organizations, one is also MeitY, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So again, here we are seeing connecting link between IMF and World Bank. That if you want to be a part of IMF, you have to be part of one of the 2 agencies of World Bank, that is IBRD. Again, just basic, you don't have to go do PhD here. And if you have economy optional, then you need to do PhD, but this information would suffice. Then IMF uses special drawing rights. So let's say you have some issues, you have some crisis, you need some money, then they will issue you money in the form of something which is their own currency per se. You can understand that SDR is, in simple terms, the currency used by IMF. This is not a currency used by other countries, but under this SDR, which some people say, or which is an acronym like, this is the currency of IMF. It includes USD, Euro, Yen, Japanese Yen, Pound, and Renminbi. Renminbi is nothing but the other name of Chinese currency yuan, right? And they have played a crucial role during 1991 BOP crisis of ours, 1973 oil crisis, 1997 East Asian financial crisis, and then 2008 global economic crisis. So they have played a crucial role in these areas, or these instances rather. That would be a more appropriate word. World Economic Outlook, again published by IMF. Global Economic Prospect, published by World Bank. If you are able to even remember these points from this article, the work is done. So it provides analysis and projections of global economy, and this is a biannual report. It must be written here biannually. This is the important part. Who publishes World Economic Outlook? IMF. How many times in a year it is published? 2 times in a year, right? Evaluates economic developments and policies worldwide, serves as a crucial tool for policymaker, economist, and financial markets. If we talk about the last article of the day, which is a little bit technical in nature, but this is about data protection rules. B. N. Sri Krishna Committee, their recommendation came, and then there was this data protection rule. In simple terms, what is data protection rule? If you want to understand it, you have your account on Facebook, Instagram, all these. But let's say you want to be forgotten and you don't want your data to be there. You just want to delete that account. But even if you delete the account, in most of the scenarios, what will happen is they have your digital footprint there. They have your data there. They can use it and they are using it. So this digital data protection rules, they are there that so that, and what is the basic gist here is that you have a right to be forgotten. If you want to be forgotten, if you don't want to be sharing your sensitive details, you should be having a right regarding that. And this particular article is talking more about it, but there is a specific concern related to data protection rule. That is about parental consent. That if there is a person who is below 18 years, then in that scenario, companies need to gather parents' consent before they can use these child's or these people's data who are of lesser than 18 years of age. But how we will determine from whom we are taking the consent is actually the parent or not. So there are issues there. How will you ensure that if any other person comes and he's saying that he is the father of that particular child who is below 18 years? So what is the way of ensuring that there is no frivolous things which are going on here? So that is a major concern, and there is no single answer for that, which is being talked about in this particular article, apart from other things. But the most important part is this: General Data Protection Regulation. Question has been asked on this in UPSC CSE 2019, and we need to be knowing about it because B. N. Sri Krishna Committee was in news for a very long period of time. So Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is facing challenges in implementing the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 in India. It's about our data protection. Nobody should be using our data in a wrongful manner, and we should also be very mindful about what we are sharing where, right? So if you're on Instagram, Snapchat, this and that, you should be very mindful about it. So Act mandates tech companies to verify the age of users under 18. If you're under 18, in that scenario, they have to take consent. We are talking about tech companies here from their parents before they can process the personal data of these people who are below 18. While the Act itself has been well received for its relatively straightforward compliance requirements, but the provision for parental consent has been problematic. And because of this, what is happening is you have to take parental consent, and we are not very sure about the way to do it. So this whole Act is in a limbo right now. Although the intention of the Act is very noble, but we are not able to implement it. Government is not able to implement it because government needs a clarity regarding this parental consent, how companies are doing it, and there's no single rule for it, how companies will be getting the parental consent. So understanding the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. So it is an Indian legal framework to protect individuals' personal data. We have a right to be forgotten, and this particular Data Protection Act, in a way, in some way or the other, tries to emphasize on that. So it governs the processing of digital personal data and include provisions to safeguard privacy in the digital era. So where this particular act applies, it applies to the processing of digital personal data within India collected either online or offline. So which kind of data can be processed? Data which is inside India, but even the data which is outside India, and if it is related to providing goods or services to individuals in India, in that scenario, the companies can even process data which is outside India, right? And if we talk more about the evolution, B. N. Sri Krishna Committee, right to be forgotten, right to privacy, so many different things are involved here. Then there are different terms which you need to understand. So I'm the owner of the data. I'll be called data principal. The entities which are collecting the data, they are called as data fiduciary. So hope you understand this word, data fiduciary, data principal. And then there are significant data fiduciary which can be notified by government. Data processor, who will be processing data on the behalf of data fiduciary. Let's say there are certain entities, the companies who are data fiduciary, who are collecting your data, but they will not be the one, or they may or may not be the one who will be processing your data. The one who will be processing your data will be data processor. And then to ensure that our data is not being used in a wrongful manner, there are some data protection officers to oversee compliance with the Act. Other provisions: citizens' right to information, correction, grievance redressal, eraser, right to be forgotten. All these things are there. And then if there are some privacy dispute, if I have an issue with Facebook that they are using my data in a wrongful manner, I can go to Data Protection Board of India, which will be resolving privacy dispute and impose penalties if needed. And then further, like against those orders, we can go to high courts and so on and so forth. Other provisions are penalties, and if there is a conflict between DPDP Act and other acts, in that scenario, DPDP Act will take precedence. What are the other provisions? We are going too deep into detail. Hope you're understanding. The basic point here is Digital Personal Data Protection Act related to which particular committee? B. N. Sri Krishna Committee. Because they can give you that B. N. Sri Krishna Committee is associated with which of the following acts. Then you have to understand that B. N. Sri Krishna Committee is associated with Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Age verification, parental concern means consent. This is the point because of which we are reading this article. Tech companies must develop a framework to verify the age of users under 18. And company must obtain verifiable parental consent before they're processing the data of minors. And then there are certain exemptions. Not all the companies have to go through this. If let's say there are companies related to healthcare or educational institution, they can be exempted. And there are other entities who are getting restricted exemptions based on certain specific areas, because maybe time is a constraint in certain scenarios. Some people are dying. In that scenario, if you keep on doing this consent thing, other people will die and you can never use their data. So that's why some exemptions are given to healthcare institutions and educational institutions as well. technological requirements. The Act does not prescribe specific technologies. How we will do the age verification, and that is why this whole issue is popping up rather. It requires companies to use available technology to ensure consent is obtained from the child's parent. Now, challenges. What are the challenges? Lack of technological solutions. What is the method by which we will verify the relationship between child and parent? IT Ministry has given no concrete answer on that. Previous solutions. Earlier, they were thinking like linking DigiLocker app with Aadhaar. But not all parents will be having their DigiLocker app, right? Because we know about DigiLocker app, but are we really, all the people have DigiLocker app? See your surroundings. Do you have DigiLocker app? So that's why it was deemed impractical. Industry and government divide. So again, industry is feeling like the requirements are challenging. This parental consent thing is hindering the whole process and everything. So there are some friction between industry and government. Global comparison. So in US, you have something known as COPPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and in EU, you have GDPR, which do not mandate any specific technologies. They are like, you can, or these laws require reasonable efforts to ensure consent, leaving the method to the discretion of the data collectors. The inability to resolve the parental consent we have just discussed. Because of this delay, this whole DPDP Act cannot be fully operationalized because companies want a surety that how we will be going about things, and government is in a limbo. They are not trying, means they are like, you can do your own things, you can do your own process. Industry is like, that is taking a lot of time, and in certain arenas, we don't have time. Time is a major constraint. Now, we have talked about the 5 articles. Let's solve 5 prelims practice question, and then we'll have a look at 1 means practice question. I have told you earlier in the previous DNAs as well that do post your marks in the comment section. How many you're getting correct out of 5? This has to be a habit, because the more you're doing it, the better you will become in these MCQ based questions. UPSC prelims has become very tricky these days, and you need to be very good in these MCQs. So please, 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 I'm again reiterating it, post your marks in the comment section, how many you're getting correct. So let's move on to the first question. This is a question related to women's representation in politics. And you can pause the video here, you can pause me here, you can read the whole question, and then you can unpause me. Representation of women in Lok Sabha has consistently been above 10%. We have seen it was hovering around 5 to 10% till 2004, if I'm not wrong. So first statement is wrong. If you eliminate first, you're left with B and D. So you just need to check for the third statement. 106 Constitutional Amendment mandates 1/3 of reservation of seats for women in Lok Sabha and State Legislative Assembly. Is this a correct statement? Yes, it is a correct statement. So the answer here is B, 2, 3, and 4. Right? So option elimination works like a charm. Try to use it. If you're even knowing one has to be wrong, you can use option elimination. Let's do the second question. Which of the following international organization provides financial assistance to member countries with balance of payment problems? And the answer is, we have continuously talked about India's BOP crisis. Which organization helped? And that organization was IMF, International Monetary Fund. If we talk about the third question, which of the following adopted a law to protect the privacy of children under the age of 13 while they are online, known as Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA. We have talked about COPPA. The country is USA. And again, I'm telling you again and again, you have to post your marks. Please post your marks. And whenever you're seeing the question, like question number 4 is in front of you, you can pause me right now, because if I'm explaining, I may give you the answer. So consider the following statement regarding the historical significance of Nalanda University. Have a look at this question. 427 AD, right? But what do you say? The king was not Skandgupta. It was Kumargupta I. So eliminate 1. Fahian's account and epigraphy. No, it was not Fahian. It was Huentasang. So second statement is also wrong. Bakhtiyar Khilji's raids in 1200 AD led to the destruction of Nalanda's treasure. And that is correct statement. So the answer is C, 3 only. Fifth question. Internal reservation within political parties can lead to an increased number of women candidates being fielded. And 73rd, 74th Amendment, the percentage of women, you can see the options here. And first and second statement looks good, looks correct. See the third statement. The percentage of women representation in State Legislative Assembly is higher than in the Lok Sabha. It is not higher, it is lower. If you remember, in Legislative Assembly, it was around 9%. And in current Lok Sabha, it is around 14%. So we have, in current Lok Sabha, we have higher percentage. So third is wrong, and the answer has to be A, 1 and 2 only. Means practice question. The informal sector has faced severe challenges in recent years, exacerbated by demonetization, rollout of GST rather, and the COVID-19 pandemic. discuss the impact of these events on the informal sector, particularly focusing on the trends in employment and enterprise activity. Here you can talk about what severe challenges, how much reduction in jobs has happened, how much manufacturing has suffered, and all these data, which we have discussed when we're talking about the first article of the day. You can give those articles, we can talk about those arenas, and you can first intro significance of informal sector, 50% of output, more than 3/4 of population are employed here. All these things you will write in the intro part. And then in the body part, demonetization, withdrawal of money, impact means they affected cash dependent informal unit, GST rollout. There are so many compliance challenges, so many tax brackets, and companies are not understanding it. COVID-19 pandemic, lockdowns led to job losses, trends in employment, then number of workers dropped from, we have seen those data, you can use these data. Increase in informal sector is also not very good. Decrease is bad, but increase is also not good, because if increase is happening too much, that means there is a shift from formal to informal employment. Formal, which is much more secure, which is much more like, which is taking much more care of a person who is working there. But informal is much more vulnerable. So even a very big increase in informal sector worker is showing economic distress. So hope you're understanding this. And we have discussed this earlier. In economy, nothing is good or bad. It all depends on the context. Policy intervention, how we can cater to these issues. Financial support, these informal sector, they need it. Social security benefits like PF, etc. We can think about extending it to these informal sectors, at least some of these informal sectors. Social security is the need of the hour. Skill development, enhanced skill development program. We have different schemes, Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and all these things, schemes we have. But how much we are implementing it and how far they're reaching the grassroots level, that is the key here, right? Infrastructure development, provide better infrastructure support to boost productivity. And so when it comes to the conclusion now, you can summarize by telling the importance of the informal sector, how they are needed in different arenas, how MSME is a crucial part of it, and there is a need for targeted policy intervention to mitigate challenges and support sustainable growth. So that's it for today's DNA. If you like the video, do like, share, and subscribe. And please post your marks in the comment section, how much you have got out of 5 prelims practice questions. How many you have got correct. Take care, be blessed. See you soon.